Welcome back, everybody, to the third and final set we have for you here into the SCC NA week number 1. Elevate versus Bloogy and the Woogys. Dolson is still here. Mifflin joins me for the second game we will see from both of these teams here today, but their first matchup here in the SCC. This is an important one, Mifflin. I mean, you look at Elevate and how close they were in that last set against Locked and Goated. Especially to have another game here today, it'd be tough to go out of this week over 2.
I mean, I'm so absolutely impressed with Elevate's play. They're playing,
yeah,
by and large, far above what I think anyone would really expect from them. These LATAM boys, they're popping off. They really are. I mean, Bloogy and the Woogys, yes, they have that star-studded roster, but today, Anister is not going to be there to hold it down in the support role. So, if Elevate were to take a set off of Bloogy and the Woogys, today would be the day to do it.
I agree. I think losing Andy, at least for this week, is a big difference maker. So this is an anticipated matchup. Let's jump into picks and bans for game number 1, though, and maybe see some of the strategy that these teams elect to pivot towards. We've seen a lot of Hoonbats banned out, Hebo as well. Maybe that's just a last set thing. I mean, is Hebo strong enough in your eyes to kind of ban out across the board, or is that maybe matchup specific between the two teams in our previous set?
I think it really was a respect ban. Hebo, yes, he brings a lot of damage. He's got decent self-peel and the ultimate being able to get him out of sticky situations and the knockup. However, Hebo generally is an easy god to dive. It's kind of like when you see Freya banned against Elevate. It's because of the respect they have towards Shiaaaaa, right? It's not really, or not Shiaaaaa, rather, Nesfor, I should say, the hunter. Yep. You ban out gods out of respect sometimes, but I don't think Hebo's really one that brings enough to the table that you would really need to target ban it all that often. So that is a huge indicator of respect coming out from the enemy team.
Well, maybe that's something that, early on when you're looking at qualifying weeks, a lot of these teams maybe weren't super familiar with one another. And that's something maybe we start to see moving through the weeks here in the SCC. Once you really know play styles and gods that certain players are really good at, maybe that's when you start to see higher levels of respect bans, but a little bit of recoil there as Camazotz let through and Elevate pick him up first.
I mean, Camazotz, we say it every week, he's so potent in every role you could possibly... you could put Camazotz anywhere. ADC Camazotz, I don't care. It's going to pop off. Support Camazotz, it's going to pop off. Jungle Camazotz actually pops off. Soul Lane, actually his true home where he's going to do the most work. However, Bloogy and the Woogys like to pick up Heimdallr, Achilles, and trade of that Camazotz. I mean, if you're going to let Camazotz through, you need to get something insanely potent off it. I think the only real trade I'd be willing to give up is maybe picking up a Yamoja off of it for that sustained healing, but Yamoja's already banned. It seems like a bit of an oversight from Bloogy to let that through.
Yeah, to get Camazotz, Kumbhakarna has been pretty high priority as well, and the Persephone, the potency of that in our previous set cannot be understated, so a good top 3 there from Elevate. Achilles in the jungle in our previous set, I mean, is that where he maybe makes the most sense to you? I know solo lane is sometimes a popular landing spot for him as well.
I mean, you can't really go wrong either way with Achilles. Jungle Achilles brings a lot of gank potential. Any god that has a easy to confirm stun as a hard CC option as well as damage to follow up and an execute, not much more you need out of a jungler. However, in soul lane, he brings so much sustain with the healing within his kit as well as gladiator shields or berserker shield sustain that you might pick up through your itemization. It's a lot better there, whereas in jungle you might want to itemize towards some more direct damage so you might not be able to really make full usage of his team fight potential.
And maybe that also depends on where this Camazotz ends up. We've seen him in the solo lane a good bit, but the hell locked in, does that maybe scream Camazotz jungle to you? Because I think we've seen hell in the solo lane a good bit.
That is 100% an indicator of Camazotz jungle.
Yeah, not
I don't imagine. Yeah, we're not gonna put hell over there, and I haven't seen Persephone jungle personally, but with my huge analyst brain, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you that that's probably not the best place you want her. Looking at this draft, Elevate got just about everything they could possibly want from a blind pick. It's gonna be hard for Bloogy and the Woogys to really deal with this healing as they don't have any true dedicated backline dive that can deal with help like on their own. Achilles is a good backline diver, but Hell's Cleanse can be able to get him out of the stun, as well as the speed boost should be able to keep her alive and away from the rest of the fight. Whereas on the other side, Elevate has Camazotz and Kumbhakarna to dive onto a Hebo and a Jing. Camazotz is going to dive onto anyone on his own anyway, but Kumbhakarna is going to lock down the other one just long enough.
I think we know who Mifflin is leaning towards here in game number 1, as Elevate have drafted themselves, I think, a very strong 5. So game number 1, let's kick it off here. And I'm interested, though. Now it is going to be the Achilles up against the Hell in that solo lane, leaving a Hebo kind of matched up, up against SpreeeN in that jungle. Talk to me a little bit about that solo lane first, the Hell up against that Achilles. What do you sort of make of the dynamic of that lane?
Achilles is really looking to establish a lead early on. He needs to maybe pick up a kill before level 10. Preferably around level 6 to 7 is going to be the turning point for Hell to really get off the ground, get some defense online, and make herself generally unkillable. Whether or not molluskk on the Hebo can rotate over and really put the kibosh to this Hell is going to really dictate the course of this game. If she works her way out of control, Hell's going to be able to dominate every team fight going forward through sustained healing as well as huge burst damage, whereas Achilles, his point of impact is going to be in the early game to establish that lead and then start rotating around the map a little bit more adeptly than Hell can. He can bring a lot more to a team fight in the early game insofar as getting that lead.
Well, healing is so much of the name of the game for Elevate here, right? I mean, between Hell and SpreeeN as well, and Bayroneri maybe moving towards the Bancross Talon, or at least some healing there for item number 1. That maybe makes anti-heal the name of the game for Bloogy and the Woogys.
Anti-heal right now especially is so core in that all the anti-heal passive defense items are really potent because they bring health as well as a good chunk of defense. And on the other side, the penetration damage items from physical and magical is going to be very good. Brawler's Beat Stick is core on just about anyone regardless of whether or not there's healing on the enemy team.
There's kind of a distinct lack of Jing in our previous set as well, and Bloogy and the Woogys put an end to that storyline as Halfghost moves back on to the Jing and sort of I think Mifflin, we've seen kind of different starts. Speaking specifically about that long lane, we've seen different starts from the supports here today alone, where I think half the time maybe they opt to rotate straight over to the mid lane, which we're seeing a bit here, and just leave the hunters on their own. And we've also seen sometimes where it's a traditional duo lane. But it's looking like the duo lane is more like the mid lane here, and maybe a rotation down to help with the purple buff here and there. But is that about maybe what you expect given these two compositions?
Generally, you want to put your support where you think he's going to have the most impact. Right now, they have a Heimdallr, however you want to say it, in the middle lane. Let's hold on to that, though. molluskk going to look to get a little bit frisky in this lane.
Yeah, molluskk had to blink through. Not enough damage from SpreeeN there to really lock down that first blood, but you could tell both junglers looking for the gank at the same time. Both Guardians, as a result, going to rotate up towards that solo lane as well. Battle for the blue buff commences here. Blugin deep into the fight he goes. He's taken down a little bit low, 2 against 1 on either side of this fight, whichever way you look at it. But Heeed is able to take away that blue buff here, so maybe a small win for Elevate.
They steal away the blue buff and the bat camps. That's so huge. It's going to disrupt the jungle's rotation path from Bloogy and the Woogys. It's going to be hard for molluskk, especially on Hebo. He needs all that farm to get himself online as quickly as possible. Getting forced to back before you can finish your shoes on a mage is pretty crippling, especially on Hebo, who's going to be so reliant on the movement speed as he generally doesn't have that much mobility within his kit outside of the water carpet and the ultimate. You don't really want to use your ultimate for mobility, obviously. They're doing a good job of identifying that on the side of Bloogy and the Woogys, the only character they really need to focus on shutting down right now is molluskk on this Hebo, and that's why they're exuding so much pressure on that side of the map. Which, to tie back into the question you asked earlier, wise support in mid, opening up support in mid opens up that huge rotation availability towards these soul lane fights. He was able to get to that blue buff very early on and establish dominance, allowing Bloogy and the Woogys not to move in whatsoever. So the buff and the back camp fall uncontested.
And as a result, a small, but, albeit 600, maybe climbing a little bit higher gold lead here for Elevate. Could be a little bit bigger. A fight brewing over the oracles here. molluskk locked down. Hebo taking out SpreeeN, finds first blood, and that's a disaster scenario if you're Bloogy and the Woogys. The last person I want finding first blood is that Camazotz.
Yeah, Camazotz with the lead. Camazotz always potent, but Camazotz with the lead, especially in a weak jungle like Hebo, is going to be so hard for molluskk to close that gap. As well as the fact, had they not stolen the blue and back camp, molluskk gets out with his ult.
Well, bad to worse maybe for Bloogy and the Woogys is Blugin locked down by Bayroneri. So potent is that Persephone. So now a kill onto the Persephone and a kill onto that Camazotz. That's Blugin who falls in the mid lane. And this is kind of a clear path for Elevate. You can see the way they want this game to go. Get this Camazotz online, get this Persephone online. And they've done a good job of it so far, 5 minutes into this game.
Unfortunately, the staggered backs off that fight don't allow them to continue the pressure on the enemy jungle from Blugin the Woogys, so blue buff does go their way this time. I've said it a lot, one buff stolen doesn't really make for a lead. It did that time because it stopped Moss from hitting 5, allowing him to fall in that fight with no ultimate available. But right now, Elevate needs to really focus up, use this 1500% gold deficit to move in towards these neutral objectives in the Oracles, or the gold tree, or even start to look towards a red buff invade. They need to keep continuing this pressure up to make sure molluskk can't really get online on this Hebo, especially since they drafted all this early lane pressure from the center of the map in Camazotz and Persephone, as well as the Kumbhakarna. They have the tools to do it. It's whether or not they can continue this pressure.
When you look at the tools that the Bloogie and the Woogies have as well, I mean, we talked pretty heavily about a double hunter composition in our previous set, and a lot of the impact, of course, in team fights. Hold that thought here as Heeed finding himself ganked out. Gamma's gonna find the stun. Molluskk finds first kill in this game for Bloogie and the Woogies. Well timed to gank, gets Hebo on the board. Big turn for them to keep them in this game. Still about a 1,500 gold deficit. But maybe pivoting back to that point, double hunter, such an impact, of course, when sieging, structure damage, things of that nature. But in this game, you're already at a deficit, and you might have to hold that thought one more time if when his Halfghost is going to get ganked, but Jing Wei, plenty safe. But back to the point.
Might be able to look for this dive now that the ultimate's down. Looks like he's going to think better of it. As you were saying, double hunter does bring a lot of objective burn, but you're going to be lacking on teamfight AoE damage as well as objective confirm. You're not going to have these huge ultimates available to really confirm these objectives in your favor. Double hunter is a draft that kind of dictates the need of an early lead, which is what makes that Hebo pick so interesting. Normally, when you have 2 hyper carries available, you kind of want one of those bridge-type assassin jungles like a Robin or a Willix to bring the early game pressure. Instead, we've got 3 hyper carries on the side of Blue.
Watch out, Nesfor swoops through. Halfghost has to use the beads, and no airstrike to disengage this time, but not needed anyway, as Blugin is here to play support. Shiaaaaa finds the epic uppercut as Nesfor moves back in, drops down the banner screen. He's rejoined in on this fight. Whirlwind of Rage and Steel is going to toss back one just outside of tower range, so he avoids the shot this time.
Nice jump.
The jump as well, back into the purple buff pit, and they get out of this one with Nesfor finding his first kill of the game.
Unfortunately, at the same time, for Blugin the Woogys, molluskk is able to wander into the enemy jungle, steal away some back camps, and get a couple waves in mid to himself. So, yes, Elevate does come out ahead on the fight, but molluskk getting that farm could be huge.
And that leaves, the solo lane maybe a bit more open here as Heeed trying to protect his blue buff. Does he have enough healing? This time he does. Has to burn the Aegis. The first active Heeed picked up in this game. Reinforcements are into the solo lane. The Bayroneri very low as well. Fire Giant Pit. Looking like the battleground for this one. Gamma just provides a little bit of healing back to SpreeeN, and this one fizzles out. But you could see the potential you were talking about. Jungle control just for a moment there went over to Bloogie and the Woogies, and they looked for a quick kill onto Heeed, but he was able to play safe enough to get out alive.
Blugin the Woogys did force out Aegis on the Hell, but at the same time they had to trade molluskk's ultimate to use that for an escape ability, so his kill potential is going to be relatively low. I imagine he's going to start backing up and looking to farm. However, Crimson, a little bit of trouble in mid.
Another epic uppercut, long-range shot from Bayroneri. ErupTCrimson has to use the beads to keep himself safe there. Bayroneri was low on mana anyway, so it would have required a little bit of extra help from Shiaaaaa to finish off that kill. But beads nonetheless, 150 seconds now down on that mid laner. And you briefly touched on the Hell. What do you sort of make of her in a lot of these fights? What sort of role does she maybe play here for Elevate?
So Elevate, Hell is kind of a lightning rod for aggression for your team, because Blugin the Woogys can't really ignore the Hell. If she makes it through a team fight, she's able to keep everyone else alive with heals, and she also doesn't have little damage. She has huge amounts of damage in that dark stance. So you would imagine Blugin the Woogys is going to activate all of their pressure onto her to try to really spearhead their way into these fights in the team fight scenario. However, with all that aggression onto one enemy god, if she goes towards a bruiser build or even a full tank build with heal focus, she might be able to survive that, especially with this early Aegis pickup. It's going to be hard for them to find those kills. At the same time, when everyone's focusing on one guy, that creates so much space for the rest of Elevate to do whatever they want freely. So while she's getting dove on the Hell, Camazotz should be moving into his back line, as well as Persephone should be assisting with Pele, using her ultimate to keep Hell alive. It's a very hard god to play against in the late game because you can't ignore her, and she's also going to become so difficult to kill in of herself.
Yeah, sustainability may be the name of the game there for Heeed and staying alive, and opts for Breastplate of Valor first overall. And that kind of pivots into another point. I mean, we talked about the role the double hunters would play, but really the main source of magical damage in this game is going to be molluskk for Bloogy and the Woogys. Are you nervous at all about just being able to prioritize physical defense and not having as much magical to kind of counter that out?
Hebo has so much damage that you're not really insanely worried about it. You are worried if he falls here. He's so low.
Oh.
Nice kill.
Yeah, you're not able to survive that one, Heeed. Your Aegis is down just for about 15 or so more seconds. So well-timed gank there from molluskk as Crimson finds another kill. What a swing here from Bloogy and the Woogys. At the snap of a finger, 3 men down from Elevate. Maybe get one back. SpreeeN uses his ultimate, finds the final shot to pull one back here for Elevate. But I still think, nonetheless, that is a massive turn in this game for Bloogy and the Woogys. They're going to get a tier 1 tower and 3 kills.
I mean, I said it earlier, that Hell lane can be completely stopped in its tracks if molluskk decides to gank it continually. And that's the 3rd time he's been over there, the 2nd time he's found the kill onto Heeed. And he's using that to leverage his own lead. Every time he moves in and kills Heeed, he steals away some back camps, he leeches a wave. And even though that he had that terrible early game, now he's got a level lead on the Camazotz, who's 2-0. SpreeeN's focusing a little bit too much attention on the gank. It is understandable when you have such an early game pressure god that you want to be exuding that pressure, trying to get your team ahead. Unfortunately, molluskk is just pulling a little bit ahead in experience, and the second he hits level 15, that's going to be the critical tipping point. He'll be finishing his 3rd or 4th item at that point. It's going to become so hard to kill him, and he's going to be able to dive this backline so effectively. And as you said, they're going to be focusing on physical defense as there are so much physical damage in the enemy team, double hunter, that it's going to open up the path for molluskk to deal even more damage. Maybe he doesn't have to itemize towards penetration as much, especially now that in Season 7, penetration is a little bit weaker. He can move in towards some raw damage items. They're primed and ready. Bloogy and the Woogys have turned this game on its head. They had such a terrible start. Now, 12 minutes in, they've got a small lead.
Yeah, things looking dire there just for a moment. And it was a perfect timing for you to say, yeah, well, Hebo does so much damage anyway. You have to, at some point, try to consider that as molluskk rolls through Heeed a couple moments ago up in that solo lane. And while the gold lead is relatively close, I mean, the main differential is going to be in the XP here. A 2-level lead for Gamma, a 1-level lead for molluskk. In the jungle there, a slight differential where Shiaaaaa has himself a 1-level lead over Blugin. But the XP is the real difference maker here in this early game, and if Bloogy and the Woogys can capitalize, maybe a good fight here can extend that just a little bit further. Bayroneri locked down, that goes underneath the tier 2 tower. No escape from Gamma this time. Ultimate just to try to re-engage onto SpreeeN. They don't have Bayroneri to provide any peel for them this time, and that's another sneaky kill between the tier 1 and tier 2 towers. Bloogy and the Woogys continuing to push that small lead.
Every bit of XP that Bloogy and the Woogys accumulates in this early game over Elevate is so detrimental because they did draft for the late game. They have these late game characters in the Heimdallr, in the Jing, in the Hebo, that Elevate are probably feeling the pressure right now, knowing that this is their time to start popping off. They need to look for these early objectives for some fights, but unfortunately Bloogy's just getting the better hand of all of these engagements.
SpreeeN still is 2-0-1, but might make that a 1, except for the get out of jail free card that the Camazotz has. This is a good fight around this Gold Fury for Bloogy and the Woogys. I was going to say you have SpreeeN poked out, but you can't forget that that's a Camazotz, and the sustain is there to keep him in these fights. Deep wardage, now put out, some warding rather, put out from Elevate here. And this is kind of the tones of maybe where the next big engagement will happen over this Gold Fury, especially when the lead is as close as it is. That first Fury is going to be very important to try to secure for you.
Yeah, now that they're starting to hit that mid to late game level of level 15 around everyone else, the XP deficit, although is huge, isn't that big. Heeed only 1 level down on the Achilles and the Hell. He's going to be able to bring more from the fight. Bloogy and the Woogys need a quick engagement as... ErupTCrimson falling.
Beautiful beads there from Bayroneri to counter out the ultimate from Crimson. He thought he had it. Unfortunate timing. You look at Crimson's Aegis, 5 seconds away from being up. Might have been enough to turn around that fight, but well played from Bayroneri. And that's a big shift here. Kind of maybe the injection that Elevate needed. Everything had been going against them for the last few minutes. SpreeeN falls here. That'll all fall by the wayside. SpreeeN not able to stay alive. Blugin trades out. This is a 1-for-1 fight if you consider it all. Whirlwind of Rage and Steel, not going to connect for much with the re-engages in from Elevate, who've now found themselves back beneath their tier 1 tower. So yeah, Crimson goes down, but for the first time this game, SpreeeN does as well. This one evens right back out.
It's been a highly contentious middle lane. You wouldn't expect that Persephone would be willing to fight into Heimdallr as much as he has, but they've been trading 1-for-1 this entire match. Gold 3 pool now, burning fast, but Blugin the Woogys do spot it out. It should fizzle in here.
They have the Oracles, so no chance they lose it here as Blugin the Woogys move themselves back in. They're still 5 strong. SpreeeN will be back from base in a few seconds as he is just now respawning Blugin. No Whirlwind of Rage and Steel to start off the fight for Blugin the Woogys. They're just going to zone out a little bit. Gold Fury has re-healed itself up to the top amount. Maybe smart from Elevate to think about starting it there, unless you found yourself rather in a fight that you're not happy about. Shiaaaaa tossed backwards, epic uppercut connects onto one, down comes crashing, but Gamma moves right back through, gets the kill onto Shiaaaaa here. Bayroneri returns one, some good training onto molluskk, keeps him out of this fight just a little bit longer. SpreeeN turns it around, a triple kill from Bayroneri and a double from SpreeeN. That's the deicide 16 minutes into this game. What a fight from Elevate to turn this one on its head.
Blugin the Woogys overextended a bit there. They knew that they had won the last engagement. molluskk was on the other side of the map, farming up, completely But once your team starts an engagement like that around an objective, you have to rotate in as the jungler, knowing full well, had they lost the fight without molluskk being there, that's the gold period down either way. So he comes in, only has enough mana to drop about 2 abilities, finds them, but unfortunately it's not quite enough damage from the Hebo to really turn that fight back towards the direction they needed. He found all the healing that he needed to in the early to sustain the initial engagement from Blugin the Woogys. And as you saw, turns for a 5-2 in favor of Elevate and a gold 3, now looking towards this Pyromancer.
And, you know, early on I said, you get SpreeeN a kill, you get Bayroneri a kill, that's what you want. Let's get this Persephone strong, let's get this Camazotz strong. You look at their 10 kills, between the two of them, they have 9. Mifflin, I don't think it's very hard to see the direction that Elevate are going to try to fight this one. If they can get these fights fought through a Camazotz and through Persephone, they'll be just fine.
And getting that early game lead on your mid and jungle is so huge because that's where the root of all fights really do start. Yeah. Right now, Season 7 is looking like a 1-3-1 meta, 1 in the long, 3 in mid, 1 in short. Yeah, that's your team fighters right there, and with the lead that they have right now, 2 levels on the Camazotz, 2 levels on the Persephone ahead. It's so insane imagining how they're going to be able to fight this out. Blugin the Woogys, they have been doing a very good job of maintaining that lead that they had for a little bit, but now that fight turns into a 3.5k deficit going forward. I imagine that we see Elevate start to group up around the Fire Giant or even towards this mid tower to open up the map.
Bayroneri was looking for the long shot there, doesn't find full engagement. Blugin has to use the ultimate. Maybe looking for a pick, but if nothing else, disengages the fight for himself. The collapse was on from Elevate. Only Bayroneri's ultimate is down as Heed's still available as well. 2 down though from Crimson and Blugin. Tier 1 tower looking a little bit nervous, and it will fall here. So Elevate, they've turned a small engagement attempt from Blugin the Woogys into a Tier 1 tower, and they're just going to continue to expand upon this lead. And you point out that's 3.5k gold at this point, maybe even a little bit more. What's next from Elevate? How do you keep pushing this lead and try to secure this game?
They continue doing what they do. They can seal away these buffs as they have been, move in towards these other Tier 1 towers. At this point with this lead, Tier 1 towers aren't really a viable defense option for Blugin the Woogys. They could absolutely defend around these Tier 2s, but 500 gold from each one of these Tier 1s is going to open up the map as well. They can steal away these buffs, return to base with this gold, create a further lead. Blugin the Woogys, not happy about it though. Looks like they're going to chase out just a little bit, but Elevate so far away and using that speed buff from the Hell should be able to disengage very easily.
Bayroneri, whose ultimate is back up here. Elevate, they have such a big lead. You know, Blugin the Woogys, they came into this jungle looking for a fight, and I'm not sure that's exactly what they want. Especially if the last one ends, or this one ends in a deicide similarly to the last one. Gamma has to use the ultimate to drop down onto SpreeeN, who has taken almost no damage. Shiaaaaa does get connected on. Whirlwind of Rage and Steel tosses back a couple, but Halfghost has to use the airstrike to disengage himself. SpreeeN with the fadeaway shot finds it. Heeed adds one as well. 2 down now. As Elevate, they did get Shiaaaaa into that passive, but were not able to finish off the kill, so it's a 2 for none here as molluskk looks to turn it around, but Nesfor shuts him right back down. Epic uppercut from Shiaaaaa, who's still alive. He's going to catch out onto Gamma. It's no deicide this time, but it's still 4 members down, and Elevate, they win another big one.
Bayroneri used his ultimate so well there. He forces out the beads from Hebo, as well as the blinks because he was out of position. He forces out the beads on Jingwei and the ultimate. That fight is immediately won after that point. It's on Blugin the Woogys to disengage as best they can. Unfortunately, they get picked in the jungle, and then they get picked under their tier 2 tower. Elevate's running with this lead. They can move in towards Fire Giant, get the vision dominance, and then just immediately pull it. And even if they don't confirm the objective, they can go for the team fight afterward. They have a lot of options here with this lead to play however they want. Looks like they're going to go ahead and elect to just move straight in for the objective.
5k gold lead and could get longer, or wider rather, if the Fire Giant is able to get cleaned up here. Down to half health. Blugin in range. Does not have the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel immediately ready. He's going to blink in and look to just disrupt this attempt a little bit. Elevate. They're able to finish this one off. Might even get a little bit more for their troubles onto Blugin, who's now about 10% HP. Nesfor dashes through, finds the kill. That's his third of the game. And yeah, you have a Persephone who's strong, you have a Camazotz who's strong, now you have a Hachiman who's got himself 3 kills, and maybe even extending that as Gamma underneath this tier 2 tower, looking juicy, but SpreeeN is going to be the one to finish off the kill. Up into the air goes Gamma, down he crashes into the waiting arms of Hachiman. One more time, 3 members down for Bloogy and the Woogys. Bad to worse, that seems like an understatement.
They could very easily move in towards this right Phoenix here and then go clear out the rest of the tier 2 towers. Instead, it looks like Camazotz is going to elect to back a little bit early, try and stop this aggression from Hebo and Heimdallr on mid. I don't imagine they really move in towards this Phoenix. 2 versus 1 on that Camazotz, he might be in a sticky situation, but level 20, Fire Giant, actives available, he should be relatively safe here.
You got a Phoenix helping you out if you look to take this fight, and Crimson, he's the one who aggroes the Phoenix first and gets taken down to about 30% HP. molluskk has the aggro on himself now. Middle lane Phoenix getting taken down. SpreeeN finds the kill though as Bayroneri has returned into this fight. Crimson's just going to try to knock them back, but Bayroneri says no way to that one. Crimson, he falls. That's a mid lane Phoenix, Mifflin, but you lose 2 members in the meantime.
Mid lane Phoenix, it's one of the worst Phoenixes to lose. It's not the absolute worst, being the long lane Phoenix furthest from the Fire Giant makes it harder to move in and defend it. However, with the team having Fire Giant elevate, they can defend this middle lane very easily, insofar as that's going to be very easy for them to clear, and they're already going to be playing aggressive towards this mid and long lane. So it's not a huge inconvenience, whereas taking the Fire Giant Phoenix is historically one of the weaker Phoenixes to take, but since Elevate already has Fire Giant, they're going to be focusing their aggression on the other side of the map. It's going to be hard for Bloogy and Woogys to allocate people over there to keep the base from flooding with these fire minions. It's a good trade in that molluskk and Heimdallr couldn't have done anything besides taking away that middle Phoenix. They couldn't really back and get to that team fight. They couldn't seal away any objectives. Gold wasn't alive yet. So that is the best absolute trade they could have hoped for, but unfortunately, it's just not that potent right now.
The onslaught looking like it's going to continue here from Elevate beneath this mid lane tier 2 tower. Whether Bloogy and the Woogys elect to defend is another question. There is flanking going on. Shiaaaaa finds the epic uppercut as Nesfor in the backline getting dove on by Blugin here. Crimson taken very low. SpreeeN capitalizes. They're disengaging back beneath this mid lane Phoenix. Gamma has Nesfor stunned down, but he dashes himself right back in. Whirlwind of Rage and Steel tosses Heeed back to the waiting arms of Gamma. But molluskk is low. Has to use both of his actives here. Not able to find a kill for it. One last shot. He finds it. 2 members down from Bloogy and the Woogys. Mid lane Phoenix. This is the next target.
And it's going to fall just about instantly. No one there to defend it. molluskk had a very good blink in there, but he hesitated a little bit on his ultimate. Couldn't find the 4 targets that he had lined up. Instead got CC'd out. The Minotaur seems to be the target here, falling relatively fast.
Dangerous, Mifflin. 3 members down. Titan being chunked away. A double kill for Nesfor. I think that just seals this one up. Elevate. They go down early, but they shrug that one off, and they win big in 23 minutes.
I mean, 23 minutes, 23 kills, as many kills as there were minutes. Elevate, that's about as convincing a win as you could hope for. molluskk and squad need to really focus up, get some cohesion in their comp. Having 3 hyper carries on your team spread throughout your team fight early game, having an ADC in mid as well as a Hebo in the jungle and a Jingwei in the long lane, they didn't really have any pressure out of any lane besides the Achilles against the Hell. And even then, Hell's so hard to shut down on their own that molluskk had to allocate all of his resources there in the early game, really closing down their 3v3 potential in the early.
Was there a big turn in this game that you could really feel? I mean, it was so back and forth. Bloogy and the Woogys were in it through and through, and even in the lead, you would argue, throughout the first, however many minutes of this game. Was it just better, more consistent team fighting from Elevate? I mean, despite it a deficit, they found better fights?
I mean, we can't talk about a turning point besides that early deicide into a Gold Fury for Elevate. I mean, that was around 12 minutes in, and it immediately turned what was a slight lead in favor of Bloogy Woogys into a dominating lead for Elevate, whereas they also had those late game gods available in Hell, in Persephone, but they had that bridge character in SpreeeN to make it happen for them. It's hard to draft as Bloogy and the Woogys did, and Elevate really made good use of it, the fact that they had no true early game potential fights.
And again, where all of the kills, or most of them rather, of the 23 were on SpreeeN and Bayroneri, I think a good job from Nesfor to still do a massive amount of damage there. It was close in the early game, Mifflin, but Elevate down the road, they get this one done, and they take game number 1. We'll see if they can continue that dominating performance in game number 2 right after this. Well, Elevate versus Bloogy and the Woogys, game number 2 about to kick off, but this is a hill to climb, I think, Mifflin, if you're Bloogy and the Woogys. After carving out a little bit of an early lead, getting blown out of the water down the stretch. I mean, we bring up the deicide, a triple kill and a double kill respectively for Elevate. It's hard mentally maybe to reset after that one. If you're Bloogy and the Woogys, what do you do maybe to kind of mentally reset?
I mean, you've got to rely on what you know. You can't really let that game affect you too much. You have to continue playing your own game. You can't let Elevate get in your head. They have to only continue to rely on the practice that they achieve through scrims throughout the weeks. So I imagine we see maybe a shift in the type of play style. They might lean towards something more aggressive, but I imagine we don't see too much adjustment outside of maybe not letting Elevate get such a nutty comp. Hell, right. Persephone, Camazotz. If they could just stop that from happening, they're going to have a lot better chance in this game.
Yeah, it's maybe a bit early in the split to be questioning everything you've practiced up to this point. Maybe stick to your guns and try to adjust picks and bans down the stretch. And a small adjustment, maybe a large adjustment, as Camazotz is banned out here, so it's not going to be running free and clear for Elevate this time. They rolled the dice, man. In game 1, they gave it a chance to go up against the Camazotz. And still, I would say they're rolling the dice here. The Hoonbats goes through. Just as potent in the jungle, I would argue. We've seen Hoonbats have big impact on a lot of these games.
I mean, Hoonbats absolutely is a fantastic jungler. He's got decent damage potential. His passive allows him a lot more burst than you might expect. And the ultimate, as always, Fear No Evil, AoE Fear, that could even be up to 3 to 4 seconds of CC, depending on where you place it. Yeah, that's going to be huge. And it's the size of, like, an entire lane, so nothing bad about Hoonbats. On the other end, though, Bloogy and the Woogys pick up Persephone and Achilles. We're seeing the Persephone taken away and the Achilles continuing to move on. I like that pick. Persephone was very good for Elevate, so they take that away. I imagine that they're going to be able to use it very well. And Achilles was the one strong point of their comp that didn't really struggle at any point. He saw the early aggression, found some executes onto Kumbhakarna. And again, executes do work through Kumbhakarna passive, so that's going to be nice to be able to use.
Yeah, I agree. I think as rough of a game as it was for Bloogy and the Woogys, Achilles definitely wasn't the sour point. I mean, everything kind of going wrong around you. I think Achilles still put together a pretty decent game in game number 1. They pick up Hachiman, though, Bloogy and the Woogys do, and realizing that Elevate still need a hunter are going to ban out that Jing Wei. But I think we've seen a pretty healthy variety of hunters, Mifflin, where, I mean, Hachiman, Xing Jing Wei, I mean, you ban out one, but there's still, I think, a whole suite of pretty popular hunters that Elevate can pick.
When crit is in the meta, it kind of dictates that every hunter is going to be good by late game, just because now all of their auto attacks are swinging for 800 to 900. As we say that, though, Freya picked up inside of Elevate. I mean, Nesfor, absolutely no stranger to this pick. We've seen him popping off on it all day today. I don't imagine we see him stop here. And he's got a very good comp around it in that Kumbhakarna's going to be able to peel him out. Vamana's going to be able to dive that backline Persephone and the Hachiman if the ultimate comes out from Hachiman. So Freya should be a largely uncontested fight pick for them. And, you know, they just have decent appeal in Hoonbats as well. Fear No Evil, if anyone aggresses onto Freya, that's a very easy target for Hoonbats to drop his ult on.
Well, Mifflin's 0% pick rate on the Chiron, but that's going to be the hunter that Elevate pair with that Freya. What do you make of Chiron in this one?
I mean, Chiron, I truly believe the only reason to ever pick Chiron is for the cleanse from his first ability. So you might be using it to stop this Persephone ult from being as potent as it could be, or even to stop this Achilles stun. However, I'm not a huge fan of that pick. I would much prefer to see someone with a more standard hunter, maybe even something besides a hunter, since they already have this Freya available.
Well, it's a mountain to climb, quite literally, for Bloogy and the Woogys over Elevate to try to get themselves back into this set. It's going to be Nesfor back on that Freya in the long lane, which puts Bayroneri on the Chiron in the mid lane. So, I mean, I say 0% pick rate, so not only have we not seen Chiron in general all that much, but they're going to have him as the hunter here in the mid lane. Does that make some sense to you, the way that the lanes worked out here for Elevate?
Yeah, assuming that Bayroneri picked Chiron exclusively to stop this Persephone ult from being as potent as it could, you obviously want it to be involved in those early game fights in that 3v3 in mid. So anytime Persephone drops her ult, if she roots anybody, he could just cleanse it off with his first ability. Yes, you are going to lose out on a little bit of burst. We might even see him max out the second or third ability before he maxes the one, assuming he only uses it for that cleanse.
And I will say, I do like Bloogy and the Woogys picking up Bacchus, if for no other reason than I like Bacchus, but a great start. A level 2 gank in from SpreeeN, up down onto Blugin, and that is first blood a minute and 15 seconds into this game. Beautifully timed from Elevate. SpreeeN on this Hoonbatz already has got a kill under his belt.
I mean, that's exactly what you want. He got over there so quickly. Crimson definitely called it out. We saw them try and disengage a little bit afterward, but SpreeeN was there just way too fast from the deal with, which is surprising as Pele in the jungle does have superior clear to Hun bots. You imagine if an early game gank were to come out in the duo lane, it would be molluskk. Instead, as you said, SpreeeN finds himself an early kill, which will open up his build a little bit so he can finish up those boots as quick as possible.
Bayroneri was taken low. Return gank from molluskk in the mid lane was going to make Bayroneri think twice about hanging around. But now you look at SpreeeN, really, I think, you find a kill so early on into this game. How are you able to convert that into a bit of a lead here is maybe the next question that you have. And right now he's hanging around that mid lane. But are you feeling now more confident? I mean, how impactful, I guess, is really the root of this question. Is that first blood, and maybe what kind of a difference does it make for SpreeeN in this jungle?
Well, it could be my jungler bias coming out, but at first blood's going to go anywhere. I always want it to be on jungle. You get those boots online early, as well as they burned off Bacchus's beads. By the way, chat, Bacchus does have beads. That is crazy. It's one less team fight active available until level 12. So at this point, SpreeeN's only goal is to continue farming up, and anytime a beads gets burned by anyone else on his team, he can move in there and start to look for those ganks. But right now, Bloogy and the Woogys undeterred, going to look for this purple buff invade.
Yeah, they're still feeling just fine in the traditional 2v2 matchup. Banish used by Nesfor, but stunned back down is Blugin. So they are going to force them back off of the purple buff. But they just kind of shrugged that one off. I mean, you look at Nesfor, I mean, he's healthy enough at least, but somewhat low on mana. Despite an early gank and Blugin finding an early death on this Bacchus, this Bloogy and the Woogys duo lane has done just fine, kind of hanging strong and keeping these levels even.
An early trade on your support opens up one full wave of solo farm for Halfghost, so he might even have a slight XP lead. Yeah, he does.
Yeah, they're
level up over this Freya. And the level on Bacchus. He did steal away one small minion on that purple buff. Is that huge? Absolutely not. Is it worth bringing up? No, not really at all. So why I say it? That's a good question.
Because he had a slight level lead there for just a second. So I think it's fair enough that that is maybe a contributing point, but I think it's half level maybe at best, as you see both support and hunter tied up level-wise for Elevate here. Heeed wrapping around the backside of molluskk, but won't find much more. Does have his ultimate, but not much lockdown. Doesn't really convert on that one. So a good early game here from Elevate, where Bloogy and the Woogys kind of kept themselves in it only in the early game in game number 1. I like what I see out of Elevate so far. You kind of continue that momentum from game number 1, moving into game number 2. Technically behind in gold, but you call it even when it's 40 or whatever. I mean, yeah, it's level 50 away from being even. So I suppose if nothing else, despite an early kill, Bloogy and the Woogys have done a good job of mitigating that and keeping themselves in this game.
Yeah, they're playing the map very well. They're getting most of the mid camps, which has closed the gap on that first blood bounty. SpreeeN still only level 5, matching molluskk and farm. He needs to start using his abilities to get into these fights a little bit earlier. Hunbot's ultimate is almost a guaranteed kill if he can find someone without beads. But unfortunately, because almost the entirety of Bloogy and the Woogys has beads online outside of the jungler and the solo laner, it's going to be hard for Hunbots to find an easy target. He could look to move in towards his Achilles and try and catch him out before he can use his ultimate to escape. But with Vamana in that lane at level 6, the kill potential is relatively low. And as we said earlier, the Bloogie and the Woogys are getting the better hand of this duo lane, which does open up a decent gank path for Hunbots if they continue to play so far up. And it looks like that's what they're spawning out here. Blugin a little bit out of position, 4 members from the side of Elevate on that side, but instead it's going to fizzle out. Everyone's going to turn back to lane to continue farming.
When you bring up beads, Mifflin, I mean, beads and flash are 9 of the 10 actions that are picked up here. Heeed might be wishing that he had one of the 2, and Gamma locks him down, and that is the first kill of this game for Bloogie and the Woogys. He does have flash, but was not able to use, or blink rather, to get himself out of that fight. So down goes Heeed for the first death of the game on Elevate, and a good gank there from molluskk to help his solo laner out.
Absolutely. I mean, molluskk on Pele, he has very low kill potential with the rest of his squad outside of Persephone using his ultimate.
Oh.
Unfortunately, just can't quite find it on Bayroneri. So ganking that solo laner is one of the better options. He can knock up out of Vamana's dash, as well as all he has to really do at any point if Vamana uses his ult to escape is to keep him low so that Achilles can find that execute, and Pele's got damage in spades.
That's going to be Bayroneri just poking away some damage with the ultimate. Well thought out there, Crimson using the beads, as you point out, but that's going to open up the oracles there on the left-hand side of the map for Bloogie and the Woogys. So good return kill just a few moments ago. Get Gamma into a good spot to have an impact further on this game. And Bloogie is just going to try to deny Nesfor some farm here. But as you so often see, or maybe when you look at Freya,
Rough.
just a matter of time for Freya to really get online, right? I mean, Nesfor, despite kind of the tug and pull of this lane, I mean, going even on this Freya into that late game, he'll be okay with that.
It's interesting to point out that Nesfor elected to go for the Shoes of the Focus instead of Shoes of the Magi. Shoes of the Magi now has a little bit of lifesteal on at 8%, I believe. That's enough in conjunction with Freya to make it a very viable pickup for mage hunters in general, as well as that he can look for additional lifesteal outside of it, and he would get, you know, the additional power. I believe it's 75 power on Shoes of the Focus. Instead, electing for the additional CDR, maybe he's worried about his ultimate being on cooldown a little bit less, or maybe he needs that vanish off the jungler. Instead, he's going to, you know, elect for that CDR, as I said earlier. It's going to slow down his build ever so slightly. He might need to look for pen elsewhere, maybe a demonic grip, straight into a Bancroft's Town or something like that. Maybe it's a little bit of discomfort with the change in the Season 7 build. That is a relatively new change for Shoes, but you would expect to see that from Freya.
Does that kind of change your mindset at all in these team fights if you're Elevate? I mean, obviously it's a Freya, she does magical damage, but not having like a traditional mage, like a Persephone or a Merlin or something of the like, does that kind of change your mindset on how you look at these fights? I mean, you're effectively defending on favor or in favor of 2 hunters almost in a way, right?
It is almost exactly the same as having double hunter, except there is the physical magical damage split, so they won't be able to focus too much on Fizz-D, but Nesfor, nice banish!
Wow, well played by Nesfor, sends molluskk up to the sky. Now 3 members of Elevate are going to collapse in onto this long lane. Shiaaaaa is going to be back behind Blugin here, stunned out by the belch there, and he blinks away up in the short lane. Nothing to be found there. What a play from Nesfor, though. Those small mechanical moments, saving his life. They have to use beads. It keeps him alive to maybe rejoin this fight here in a moment.
And that was really good use of the one from Chiron to cleanse the root. And a sick blink. I mean, Elevate's playing defensively, but that's so well.
A good Fear No Evil from SpreeeN as well. Sends molluskk the opposite direction. Bayroneri uses his ultimate just to buy a little bit of time, but Halfghost shuts that one down. As Blugin was in range as well, but he's found a low health Halfghost right beneath this Fury here, and that's a free kill for him. This one is a 1-for-1 engagement. Nesfor uses the banish as well, this time onto Blugin. molluskk is there just to warn him away from stepping any further. It's a 1-for-1 trade. Mid laner for Elevate down, and Bloogie and the Woogys, they lose their hunter.
That's a decent trade in that you're going to put your Freya ahead, who is the backbone of your late game. Freya, the only true late game hypercarry on the side of Elevate. She should be the priority to get his early game leads onto, and they're doing a decent job of keeping her alive anytime that Bloogie and the Woogys elect to rotate multiple members over there. Elevate is matching that rotation, as well as they are trading out lives, but they're never letting this Freya fall, which is exactly what they need.
Yeah, I think good mechanical skill from Nesfor as well has assisted that. Well, 10 minutes in, we stand tied up after a first blood from Elevate came early into this one. 150 gold differential for Bloogie and the Woogys. I mean, I guess the big standout there, Mifflin, is the 1300 XP differential. But depending on how that is spread out amongst the rest of Bloogie and the Woogys, it could maybe not be as heavily impactful as we see. But in this early game, you know, a 1500 XP differential is pretty important, and that gives them just a small enough lead to maybe give them an edge.
They might be able to use it a little bit, but as the XP differential is spread out, it's only really one level on the mid laner that's the differentiating factor. And as we've pointed out already, Chiron is only really there to mitigate loss from Persephone, so the fact that he's not winning the lane is what we would expect. Calling this a perfectly even match wouldn't be an exaggeration.
Certainly not an overstatement, but might sway one way or the other. SpreeeN tosses down the Fear No Evil, but Crimson is there to turn this fight back into their favor. Locked down now is Shiaaaaa into the passive, but doesn't last very long. Heeed, though, has rejoined the fight and found a kill on to Crimson. So it's a 2-for-1 in favor of Bloogie and the Woogys this time. Bayroneri just trying to escape Persephone passive, who might have been able to do enough damage to make Bayroneri die. But this time around, it fizzles out. Elevate, they lose 2 more members, but they are able to trade out 1 onto Crimson.
I mean, the longer this game goes on, the more Elevate is favored. Last game, Bloogie and the Woogys drafted for the late. This time, Elevate's got it in the team fight ability from SpreeeN, as well as this Freya, as we have seen historically popping off all day. Whereas on the other side, Bloogie and the Woogys in their late game, they have a Persephone, they've got a standard Hunter, and Pele in the late game is relatively decent, but against Elevate's comp, they've got so much to deal with her basic auto attack aggression that it's going to be hard for her to really pop off, so she needs to make her stamp in the early.
She's had to use Blink to get herself away from Heeed there, and she is here to try to take away that blue buff. Gamma may have secured the buff, which he does, but he might die. Has to use the ultimate, not in time. SpreeeN finds his 2nd kill of the game, the 4th overall for Elevate. There's SpreeeN rearing his head once more for the 2nd time in this game.
Yeah, I mean, he's getting a little bit aggressive on his blue buff. I know soul laners, every time I used to play with my buddy Derek, it's worse, that was the soul laner for Eager. If I let his buff go down, he would throw up an F6 vote on cooldown in scrim. So I understand where Gamma's coming from. He doesn't want to lose that buff, but you have to imagine that your life is a little bit more valuable. And off his death, Pyromancer should fall for free to the side of Elevate. I mean, what was a completely even game has continued to be a completely even game, but as we said earlier, Elevate is looking towards that late, whereas Bloogie and the Woogys don't do too well that far in the game.
Bayroneri deleted by the mid lane Harpies. That's ErupTCrimson. Most of this game has flowed through this Persephone. 2-1 and 2, 4 affected kills out of the 5 total that Bloogie and the Woogys have. The question is now, is 1 death onto Bayroneri enough to make Bloogie and the Woogys feel comfortable starting off this Gold Fury? And the answer at the moment is yes. Heeed is in range. He does have the Colossal Fury. This lead says Shiaaaaa. Big uppercut connects onto the back climb. Gold Fury pulled out here. Bloogie and the Woogys, their health bars are low, but they've been able to turn around a good bit of this damage onto Heeed. Fear No Evil from SpreeeN is going to send a couple running, so Gold Fury is stalled out. But Elevate one more time, they lose Heeed.
Losing Heeed is so huge here as well, since he's the only real character on the side of Elevate at this point that can deal with the aggression from Persephone. He's the only one that can dive onto her safely. Without him, Bloogie and the Woogys can move in, return to base, and continue their aggression towards this Gold Fury. Sort of leverage this very slight lead that they have. This first Gold Fury is going to be very determining on whether or not they can move into the mid to late game very cohesively. This Gold Fury opens up the map. Whoever pulls this one's going to start opening up these towers as well. Return to base, spend that gold, start going towards these towers. It's the classic Smite flowchart. Get the neutral objective, then go for these more permanent ones, and then open up the Fire Giant a little bit. And getting your Freya to late game would be nice for Elevate. Yeah. But right now, Bloogie and the Woogys are in the driver's seat, and picking up Heeed there forces him to move back into his lane, so they can start to rotate over towards the Gold Fury while he's over there clearing waves.
Now, I agree with the point you kind of bring up about the Freya. I mean, Bloogie and the Woogys, not that they have a late game to be scoffed at themselves, but the timer is on for Nesfor on this Freya, and the longer that time ticks down, well, they might feel a little bit more powerful in some of these fights, and we've seen what Nesfor on this Freya can do, not only here in the early game, not only here in this game, but in previous sets today. So maybe that's the win condition here for Elevate. What have you made so far maybe hold that thought as molluskk jumps back in, finds his first kill of the game. Nesfor, as soon as I gas him up, gets killed off by molluskk here in standard fashion. Seems to be happening to us all here today, and unfortunately they won't have their Freya here for what could be a Gold Fury fight. Heeed thinking about it, uses Colossal Fury, but just gets himself out alive. So now, he's be more confident in this Gold Fury. Blugin the Woogys, 4 members strong. 5, Shiaaaaa with the epic uppercut. Gold Fury pulled away, hop up, Shiaaaaa down into the passive. He goes. Heeed, though, he's rejoined the fight and gets the kill onto molluskk. It's a 1-for-1 with Elevate being able to trade out. Bayroneri very low. Gamma missing the execute onto Bayroneri, who sidestepped that one. Heeed still into the backline, though, has the thorns up and active right now, and that's enough to keep him alive. SpreeeN joined the fight. Finally, Bayroneri goes down, but SpreeeN has found the second in this one. It's a 2-for-2 as we stand. Aegis used by Crimson as well, but he turns around the damage. SpreeeN falls, and it ends up being a 2-for-3 in favor of Bloogy and the Woogys.
A healthy Freya here could turn around this fight. She is down in levels, but if they choose to aggress under this tower with their health bars, she might be able to turn it around. Instead, looks like they're going to go ahead and back up, but Gamma getting a little bit frisky.
Thinking about maybe a dive here and actually perfectly ranges out those abilities here, and Nesfor takes a good chunk of his health is damaged there, down to about half health. So Gamma on this Achilles, we were curious how it would look, and at 16 minutes in, he is 3-1-3. Plenty powerful in these fights, and maybe looking for a little bit of a gank, but thinking twice. But a lot of it flowing through Achilles, a lot of this game flowing through Persephone. Bloogy and the Woogys, they've got the tools to maybe take this Fury.
I mean, the dance of the Gold Fury will certainly continue. Gamma never had an opportunity to return to base there, so he's got about 2,000 gold in hand. That's about an entire item that he could have had. Instead, the Gold Fury fight is going to start up right now.
Let's flip on the music and start this dance one more time. ErupTCrimson misses off to the side.
Nice steal.
The ultimate, beautiful. Fear No Evil from SpreeeN is going to send a few running, stolen away, as you point out. Elevate are able to grab the Fury for themselves here. Can they grab the rest of this fight? That's the question. He moved himself in. Blugin is going to stun down onto Nesfor, who has to think twice about trying to engage here. Elevate, nobody dead, but a brilliant play from SpreeeN to jump in there, and the rest of the team from Elevate to secure that Fury.
I couldn't tell you exactly what stole that objective away, but that is so huge for Elevate, keeping this game completely even. Bayroneri in a little bit of trouble in mid, gonna lose his life, but 1 for Gold Fury is not too bad.
And we're gonna get another look at exactly how that happened here. You see Shiaaaaa moving in, and then SpreeeN getting very close as well. Epic uppercut. I couldn't quite catch that, to be honest with you, Mifflin. SpreeeN sent a few running with his Fear No Evil there. Looked like maybe some damage from Nesfor or Bayroneri there to move through and catch out that Fury. So well played from Elevate to grab the kill. Bayroneri did end up falling on the back end of it, but Elevate, they pulled themselves right back into this game after Bloogy and the Woogys started running away with it.
It looked like it was the landing from Shiaaa's epic uppercut that stole away that Gold Fury, which is completely nuts. It's not a ton of damage. It is not laughable. I would say it's probably around 150 damage on landing here, but it knocked away some enemies. It got the Gold Fury killed. I mean, that's huge.
Landing damage, yeah, I mean, at level 2, it would have been 209. I'm not going to do the math on his power, but...
Yeah, but let's calculate the mitigations from the defense and Gold Fury, as well as any sort of power shred coming out from that Void Stone. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say that was exactly 140 damage to steal away that Gold Fury.
It was 141 on my quick calculation, so you were close. Forgot to round a few of the numbers there. But awesome play there from Elevate. I mean, maybe a little bit of luck if it was truly the landing from Shiaaa's ultimate that stole that one away, and this one is flipped right back in favor of Elevate as they're able to get the Pyromancer as well. molluskk is dangerous on this Pele at 1-1-5, and Nesfor respects that. He's going to move himself away. Blink used to get himself out to safety. But it had been a quiet few minutes, honestly, from SpreeeN, if you want to compare jungler to jungler here. He found first blood and had a quiet few minutes after that. That was a big play there from them. Try and re-engage on that Fury. Crimson caught out here in the mid lane. She had an epic uppercut onto one underneath that tier 1 tower. Crimson, the passive, is able to finish off the kill onto Bayroneri as Gamma is trying to backpedal his way away from this tier 1. We do stand at a 1-for-1, and Bayroneri has had a tough game on this Chiron.
I mean, they tried so well there, Elevate, to let Chiron get the last hit from his ultimate that would revive him from death. Unfortunately, SpreeeN has a little bit too much damage. One auto attack dropped him about 20% there off his passive. It's not ever easy, but that is the ideal play, is to get your Chiron back up there. They can maybe look towards an objective, towards the mid lane tower here. It had that happen, but instead the 1-for-1 trade completely, again, and we've said it all 20 minutes, completely even game insofar as gold, and it's going to continue. Blugin having a little bit of fun with his perfect middle lane. What a troll.
I mean, we look at, you know, gold and XP, though, and call that even. As Guardians exchange waves to one another across the middle lane, as finally the pesky mid laners are no longer here to steal away their farm, right? So, you know, when the mid laners are away, Blugin and Shiaaaaa will play, and tends to be the case here. I love it, dude.
Certainly fine.
Why not?
I mean,
but back to the point, though. I mean, you look at gold and XP, and you do call that even. But composition-wise, is there one of the two that you're more nervous about as we get towards this late game? If all things are even, if you talk about build-up time, who are you more excited about maybe moving into this mid to late game?
You could make the argument that Bloogy Woogys comps tit for tat, they have better characters. But if we're going to talk about team composition, I have to favor Elevate. They've got so much synergy throughout the whole of their comp. Bayroneri is able to peel out his squad from the Persephone ultimate. She is going to be able to peel for Nesfor. While Nesfor is dealing damage to the frontliners, Heed's going to be diving onto those backliners that are going to be so hard to get them off. I mean, their comp is so potent going forward that I can't imagine that Bloogy Woogys want this game to go any longer than it already has. They need to start establishing a lead. And I've been saying that for 20 minutes, and it hasn't happened just quite yet. So Elevate, power to them, getting exactly what they need.
Well, they might feel like they've taken fights that they like. They have 5 more kills, but about every other aspect of this game hasn't quite gone in their favor. And even more towers left standing for Bloogy and the Woogys, but has, I guess, just been enough farm. The Gold Fury, a big difference maker in that as well. I don't think you can ignore the steal that Elevate had just earlier on as a pivot point in this one. Fury respawning in 5 or 6 seconds, despite will likely dictate who's able to grab it. But Mifflin, it took us 5 minutes to finally find an engagement the last time the Fury respawned. Both these teams looking for the perfect moment, and it might be here as molluskk jumps his way in there. You trade out jungler for jungler this time. Epic uppercut onto Gamma as Nesfor has to back himself away, uses the ultimate just to poke down a little bit of damage. And now you have Heeed.
Nice shot!
Goes Halfghost, finds the final shot, or Bayroneri rather, onto Halfghost, finds the final one. 3 members of Bloogy and the Woogys left standing all together. A Colossal Fury, so much value there from Heeed. This could be a massive fight for Elevate passive. Started up from Shiaaaaa here, and he's just going to be zoned out by Heeed. Looks like Shiaaaaa's actually going to be able to pop back up from this one, so the Kumbhakarna passive pays off this time, and that's a 2-for-1 fight in favor of Elevate.
I really like Maul's thought process there, knowing that if he trades his life for SpreeeN on that Hunbots, he is a lot less valuable in these team fights going forward because, as we've always said, Fear No Evil is a huge tool that AoE, CC, molluskk can't really match that level of effectiveness with Pele. Instead, he's electing for a more Loki-esque playstyle that you trade yourself for one high priority target. And he got it off trading the actives as well, so SpreeeN's not going to have the beads available for the next fight, so Bloogy and the Woogys can find that early pressure onto him. They might be able to pick him out again. This next Gold Fury is going to be highly contended. I imagine that Elevate will be the ones to try and aggress onto it and start it up. Yep, I'm seeing that now.
Starting it, and they have plenty of damage, down to half health. Blugin and the Woogys rotating through. You see Shiaaaaa way in the back line, zoning out from this fight. Blugin has bounced his way in there. Fury taken very low. Elevate, they secure this one. ErupTCrimson has tossed his ultimate through, and that helps Gamma find the first kill onto the Freya. molluskk answering back with the second kill of this fight for Bloogy and the Woogys. He's looking nervous all of a sudden, but he pops that Colossal Fury and doesn't do much. A double kill for molluskk on that Pele is a big turn from them. Shiaaaaa just getting that mid lane pushing, and SpreeeN and Shiaaaaa, the only 2 left alive from Elevate, but they do get the Fury.
Might have been a bit of overkill from Bloogy and the Woogys to use their Onk on an already dead, surrounded Vamana. However, you can't be too mad about it as there are 3 dead on the side of Elevate. They should be able to move in towards this Fire Giant, relatively uncontested. SpreeeN's the only one there in range to stop them from doing it, and his ultimate's not available. It's going to be very difficult for him to get in.
Gets stunned out by Blugin. Half health now on the SG. She has moved in as well. Halfghost very low. Nice CC onto 1, but not enough to save his life. Halfghost off to the side is just going to go back to base. You lose SpreeeN, but for the moment you've done enough to make them think twice about starting up this Fire Giant, but Shiaaaaa is still in range. The potential always there for a steal if Shiaaaaa might move his way in. Mifflin, there's some support here coming from the rest of Elevate. Epic uppercut connects onto 1. Down comes Crimson. Plenty of damage onto that Persephone. Might make him think twice about engaging on this fight. Nice 3-man CC there from Shiaaaaa. The Blugin belly flops his way in there. Locked down now is Nesfor, and they're going to move themselves out thanks to Bayroneri cleansing that one from them. Nothing else. They stalled out the Fire Giant, but that is the Pyromancer going the way of Bloogy and the Woogys.
Shiaaaaa played as well as you could possibly hope from a Kumbhakarna there. He rooted the enemy ErupTCrimson Persephone inside the flame wall from Fire Giant, making her take that tick damage constantly. And then the second his CC wore out, he used the epic uppercut to keep her there as well, dropping him single-handedly to about a quarter health, which would stop all the continued aggression onto Fire Giant. We saw them pivot their step, moving the Woogys towards this Pyromancer, but Elevate, that's as good as you could hope in that situation. By all rights, Fire Giant should have fallen to Bloogy and the Woogys. Instead, Shiaaaaa playing the role of hero.
We're now back to a 5v5 standing, and gold 2k in favor of Bloogy and the Woogys. XP a little bit bigger there for them. I mean, if you're Elevate, you look at kind of these one man, one after another, trying to engage on these fights just to stop the Fire Giant. Are you comfortable in a traditional 5v5 fight if you're Elevate to try to contest these Fire Giants?
Absolutely, that's exactly what they draft for. If SpreeeN can get in there and get an impactful ultimate down, or even if they could take a long-range engagement, maybe use Freya to burn out some of these beads early on, the second any beads is burned on the side of Bloogy and the Woogys, Elevate is favored in the fight simply because of Fear No Evil in the jungle. They don't have any way to really react to it outside of their beads. They would have to maybe look for some early aggression onto Nesfor. If Nesfor plays a little bit further back, in the last couple of engagements, too far up, and gets picked out too early.
It's going to be full strength on the actives moving into this fight as Elevate. We're going to get Bayroneri peeled out, and that's good peel from SpreeeN as well. Drops the Fear No Evil. Gamma looking for the execute, just short onto Nesfor. Finds the kill onto Bayroneri, though, and a double kill now for this Achilles. Keeps Bloogy and the Woogys in a perfect spot in this fight. Shiaaaaa into the passive. I don't think he escapes this one this time. A triple kill for Gamma on this Achilles has kept Bloogy and the Woogys in the driver's seat. And this mid lane tier 2 tower is going to fall, and then might pivot back towards Fire Giant, but maybe not first before sieging this Phoenix.
I mean, Phoenix should be pretty easy for them to pick up there. Vamana is just now able to return to base. Hunbot's no ultimate available. He should be able to group up around this and clear it out relatively uncontested. There's no real threat from the side of Elevate. I mean, Elevate has the composition to take these team fights, but instead they're getting engaged on so well every time that they have to drop all of their tools to self-disengage. They don't have any peel from their Shiaaaaa, not enough at least to get everyone out alive since they're all losing these individual fights within the team fight. Bloogy and the Woogys are doing a fantastic job of keeping Elevate from using their comp to the fullest potential. 9-1 on the Achilles. You got to give a lot of that credit to Gamma.
Yeah, he found a small lead early on and has converted that over. Molluskk walks into the Fear No Evil. Epic uppercut from Shiaaaaa. Might be enough to drop him down. Down goes Molluskk. Some good CC onto the rest of the members of Elevate, though. ErupTCrimson tosses down the Persephone ultimate back to the back line. Gamma is very low here. He's 9-1-8, but that doesn't make him invincible, and he has to get away. Blugin very low. No Phoenix there to find the damage, but Bayroneri does it all himself. Gamma here now. He does a Colossal Fury. It's just going to poke away a little bit of damage. Gamma, he's healthy. He's tanky. Not healthy enough, though. That's the shutdown from Heeed. And this is a big turning fight from Elevate. They found themselves a 3-for-0.
They need to move back immediately and start going towards this Fire Giant. If they can pick up Crimson, that's fantastic, but they can't waste too much time worrying about these enemy spawns.
Gonna have the passive on Persephone, and Heeed is just gonna try to delay the inevitable here, which is Crimson falling. And you ask for it, and you get it here, Mifflin. He's very low there, close from Crimson. But it is Fire Giant started. One member alive, and that is Halfghost. He is moving over towards this Fire Giant, might get there in time. Half health remaining. Shiaaaaa has to move himself away. Just the Hunters poking away at the Fire Giant's health bar. Halfghost thinking about it. Shiaaaaa in range. Maybe peel him off. Fire Giant low. Halfghost moves in. Halfghost does not get an epic uppercut. He might even die for his troubles here. Yes, please, says Bayroneri. And what a turn in this game, Miff, when you were down 4,000 and some change gold, but now you get 3-4 kills and a Fire Giant. What a spike from Elevate.
I mean, we've been saying it all game, completely even on the EXP and gold charts. However, I've said it every single day on cast that I've been here. I equate Fire Giant to exactly 10,000 gold, as well as the additional sustain is going to make it so easy for Elevate to move in towards these objectives. The tier 1 towers, the tier 2 towers, clear them off the map. That's going to swing the gold even further in their favor. Gold Fury also available as well. They can move in towards these permanent objectives, back up towards the Gold Fury, return to base. and they should have plenty of time on Fire Giant to even group up afterwards, spending all that gold and moving towards the left lane Phoenix.
Well, it almost seemed like just a matter of time, right? I mean, you bring up how Elevate's composition is built for that, built for these big team fights. It just hadn't gone their way up to this point this game, so it just seemed like it was going to be one fight is all that it needed. molluskk caught out into the Fear No Evil again.
That's a huge pick.
Putting a stamp on this game. 5-4-3 now on that Hoonbox. Nesfor takes to the skies. Blugin not going to find anyone with his belts this time. molluskk, he's been the root of the last two big wins for Elevate. Both times they picked out molluskk. Both times they've been able to win the team fight. Might be another case of that here. Epic uppercut onto Crimson, has to burn both of his actives here. Aegis used, and he's able to get back beneath the Phoenix, but he's going to shrug off the damage. No kill this time onto Crimson. Aegis is down, but it is at the root of molluskk dying early on in the pit.
Yeah, molluskk is such a huge tool for his team. Getting picked is never good, but when you're so valuable to your squad, you have to prioritize your life a little bit. Instead, molluskk trying to find a pick himself, gets it turned onto himself as well. Nesfor, on the other hand, we've been talking about how Freya's going to pop off on the late game. 31 minutes in, full build. This is about the time we would expect it to happen, but instead, 9,000 damage on the chart. We're going to need Nesfor to pop off just a little bit more. You can't fault the support. Shiaaa's doing such a fantastic job this game. He's peeling perfectly, setting up these engages. It's just Nesfor hasn't been able to find any real true damage on these enemies. The second that Nesfor can find himself in a good position to get involved in these fights, Elevate's going to be looking like a completely different team.
Yeah, Crimson has 4 times the amount of damage as Nesfor on that Freya, and about 3 times as much damage as Bayroneri on the Chiron here, but Elevate have found a way to get it done. I mean, a lot of that damage into this early game, I mean, you equate Fire Giant to 10k gold lead, but literally on the board we stand at about a 5k gold lead, a big swing here for Elevate. Tier 2 towers are getting taken down, only one left standing in this right lane. So the inevitable question is, how does the defense now look for Bloogy and the Woogys? Because that's where this fight is going to be taken, underneath their Phoenixes.
The Bloogy and the Woogys defense is completely rooted around Crimson's ultimate on that Persephone. If they can find an easy grab onto 2 people and maybe turn that fight, molluskk has to get the instant kill off the Persephone ultimate with his own ultimate. Afterwards, it's on Blugin maybe to disrupt the fight and turn it around. However, it's going to be very hard as he's going to be diving into this backline.
Elevate looking to engage underneath this Phoenix. Tosses out the ultimate is Crimson. Beautiful Fear No Evil from SpreeeN. Sends a few running, and that's the disengage they needed here. molluskk finds the kill, though. Bayroneri turns one around onto the jungler of Bloogy and the Woogys. And now he's got out a double kill, though. He's right back in. He's found a triple kill. Bayroneri found the perfect time to pop off, and this one, Gamma shuts him down. SpreeeN finds the 4th. What a fight from Bayroneri and the rest of Elevate.
I mean, I am so absolutely impressed by Elevate today. Shouts to Shiaaaaa for being able to disengage that fight. Shouts to SpreeeN using his Fear No Evil to completely stop all aggression off Persephone's ultimate. However, Nesfor still sitting at the bottom of the charts, 9,900 damage, but when your team's playing this well, it's really not up to you anymore.
Yeah, it's a big pivot from Bayroneri, what we've seen here. 3 kills, and that one was 4, 8, and something else previous to that. So a good fight there from Elevate to put them in the lead here in this game. In Mifflin, you know, I'm wondering at this point, if you're Bloogy and the Woogys, can you even defend? I mean, at this point, it just seems like a foregone conclusion that Elevate are just going to kind of be able to barrel down the mid lane, barrel down the right lane, maybe grab this Fire Giant. Do you have to move out and contest it and maybe hope that you can get yourself a nice team fight into the FG?
I'm not so sure about that. Bloogy and the Woogys were very close to winning that fight absolutely on their own. We could have used molluskk's ultimate if he had found 2 more auto attacks. Instead, he got burned a little bit too quickly, but if you saw the damage coming out from it, it was so high. Had he found 2 more additional members on the side of Elevate would have fallen, and that would have been a clean defense from them. I don't think it's quite late enough in this game to call it over, a foregone conclusion if you would. Defending her on the Fire Giant for Bloogy and the Woogys, that might be a bit of a misplay. I imagine they allow Elevate to just take this and try and defend around their Phoenix again.
But at least move themselves in that direction. So it depends if Elevate can find that same consistent engage that they've had before. Shiaaaaa, he's found the epic uppercut onto Crimson here. Can they follow up with a little bit of damage? Halfghost taken out of this fight by SpreeeN. That's a killing spree for the Hoonbots now. 1 member down from Bloogy and the Woogys. This fight dissipating, but molluskk He's been able to jump onto Bayroneri, the triple kill hero in the previous fight. Suddenly Elevate crumbling. In this one, do you have enough damage to turn it around? Nesfor, you had 10k prior to this one, but you have just enough to take down molluskk, but Gamma returns the favor with a double kill of his own. Heeed still alive, still swinging away. Nice double stun. Titan under attack for Bloogy and the Woogys. Those fire minions on the left-hand side. It is a 3-for-3 for Elevate. Bloogy and the Woogys, they move out and defend, and they grab 3 kills of their own.
I mean, Crimson found 5,000 damage in that fight. molluskk instantly eliminated Chiron. That's about as good as you could hope from a fight in the jungle from Bloogy and the Woogys there. I will reiterate, I don't think it was the best decision to defend around that fire giant. Now the Titan's dropping to a little bit above half health, as well as you're not going to be able to take that fire giant. They're going to spawn around the same time. Elevate's still going to be favored around this fight. Yes, it was a good fight in favor of Bloogy and the Woogys. A 3-for-3 trade when you're at this large of a deficit is always nice, but it's not enough. And I would much prefer having those members farming rather than trading their lives.
Sure, it's nice, but it might not win you the game here, as Titan is just going to have to dust off after a little bit of fire minion damage. Fury is up in 7 or so seconds, and that maybe makes things a little bit more interesting here. There is maybe a world where Bloogy and the Woogys just kind of let the FG go, maybe pivot towards the Fury, but the way Elevate are looking here, Mifflin, they might just take this Fury and then go back to the Fire Giant.
Oni Fury opens up the map so well because those the minions that spawn from it, the enhanced minions, can single-handedly take down these phoenixes. So I like to think of it as the objective primer, the Fire Giant primer, if you would. Most people would say Primal Fury because it gives you additional damage and damage mitigation against these jungle boss camps like Fire Giant, Pyromancer. However, the map pressure that comes out from Oni Fury is just so valuable that I do agree with the decision to move in towards it first. I just would have preferred had they sent at least 1 or 2 members over towards the Fire Giant just to make sure that Bloogy and the Woogys don't steal it away, as they had already shown that they're willing to be up that far on the map.
Well, got away with it this time as the Oni waves start to pour out of the base of Elevate. Fire Giant being danced around, Bloogy and the Woogys potentially in range. Blugin vanished up, Bayroneri rotating around the left-hand side here. Shiaaaaa is doing a great job of zoning out a few. Watch out though, molluskk is close by, and we've seen 1v1s go the way of molluskk onto SpreeeN previously in this game. You have to be careful about where you're engaging and who you're engaging on. You pointed it out, Mifflin. I mean, if that's a 1v1, then molluskk is at least able to get a kill onto SpreeeN. He'll take that any day of the week. Shiaaaaa moves in though, SpreeeN. He has to use his beats to stay alive. The fight is here. Fear no evil just makes Bloogy and the Woogys think twice about rounding that corner. Halfghost is down the first kill of this fight onto Shiaaaaa. They're going to funnel themselves back towards this fire giant. Bayroneri, he falls. No ultimate this time. Gamma, he's found the second kill in this fight for Bloogy and the Woogys, and he has to use his ultimate as Gamma chases him down. Another, I don't know if you call it an overextension for Elevate. Left side Phoenix taken down. Good eyes there, Mifflin. The left side Phoenix wall delayed out. So you're going to lose 3 members here if you're Elevate.
3 members, as well as they will most likely lose this fire giant. Bloogy and the Woogys taking advantage of every single one of these fights, focusing all their attention on a SpreeeN in that fight, disallowed him from using his ultimate to peel off of that Persephone ultimate. Chiron got forced out there, as well as it was so hard for Nesfor to be able to peel for himself as well. Shiaaaaa missing his ultimate unfortunately put him out of position, but I think it really was Bloogy and Woogys' focus onto SpreeeN, forcing him to use his ultimate subparly, that won them that fight.
Fire Giant, half health here for Bloogy and the Woogys. SpreeeN can do plenty of damage, has the Fear No Evil as well, and I think Bloogy and the Woogys, respecting that, are going to move themselves back, heals up a little bit, but still remains about at that half health mark. You talk about 2 people who can do a lot of damage. It's Freya and a Hoonbat's Fear No Evil.
Wow.
Sends you back. SpreeeN finds the kill. On to Gamma. A double kill now in this fight. Nesfor, he's found the 3rd. They take the Fire Giant as well. What a play. Nesfor, SpreeeN. You find yourself 3 kills. You grab yourself the FG. Elevate. They have absolutely stomped Bloogy and the Woogys out of this Fire Giant attempt. You might even be able to get a kill on the Crimson here. Epic Uppercut, it gets used just prior to that, so it's not going to be here to save a lot of the damage on the back end of it. But Mifflin, what a turnaround. 30-second and some change death timers as Crimson to escape from this one.
If they find a pick, it's game.
Elevate.
That is huge plays. Nesfor has had a hard time this entire match finding his pace, but finally in this 40 minutes into the game, turns it around. Fireman is flooding into the left side. Bayroneri already there, ready on deck to drop this Titan down. That is most likely game.
I think that's got to be it, Mifflin. Only Blugin left alive. Elevate, they trailed for so much of this game. but effective team fighting. That one wins the day in 39 minutes. Elevate. They take the win, and they take the set. What a set from them, especially bouncing back from set number 2. They lose in a tough 3 games. I would say brilliant play here to take this one.
If there was ever an argument for Freya, it's right there in Nesfor. I mean, it took him 40 minutes to find any sort of footing, but the second he did, he wins the game for his team. But as I've been known to do, I'm going to go ahead and name my own MVP for this game, and it's going to go to Shiaaaaa. Shiaaaaa played so well fighting these engagements, peeling off the enemy team. It's not very often that you see a Kumbhakarna able to send someone up in the air with epic uppercut and then move in towards the other 3 members in the team fight and mez or root them out so they couldn't be able to peel out their boys. That happened so much this game. A lot of Elevate's team fight potential you would think would come off the back of SpreeeN, but because Bloogy and the Woogys are focusing so much of their attention on him, Shiaaaaa was able to find these sick engagements all on his own.
And I agree. I think Shiaaaaa had a brilliant time starting off a lot of these fights. The follow-up was consistently there from Elevate. So I think as far as a team win goes, this is definitely one to hang your hat on if you're Elevate. And Bayroneri as well. Talk about the tough early game that he had. He was 0-5 at one point throughout that one. Ended up at 8-10 and then, a whole bunch of assists. So you go 8-5 down the stretch, still not incredible, but being able to turn around from a 0-5 start in that matchup where Persephone far and away was the top damage in the game, I think you got to give a hat off to him as well.
As well as he really used his first ability utility-wise so well. So many Persephone ultimates were completely nullified from him just cleansing his entire team out of it. And that's what you picked the Chiron for. You didn't pick him to have him as the hyper carry. You picked him for that utility. Instead, he still finds his own spot in this game to pop off, getting that, a triple kill around the left side Phoenix, almost single-handedly from all that damage through him, his ultimate reviving him as well. I mean, Chiron doesn't often pop off, but that was a fantastic performance from Bayroneri.
A big turnaround and a big win there from Elevate to even themselves up to 1-1 on this week. That's all the Smite SCC action we've got for you here today over in North America. Make sure to keep your eyes on @SmitePro on Twitter for all future updates. On behalf of myself, Mifflin, everyone back in production, thank you everyone for watching with us this week, and we'll see you next time.